Today we're talking about rotoscoping, like separating elements out, frame, frame by frame. Again, when you're in Photoshop, it's easy to take something out of a background for a single frame or a single shot. But for video, it becomes very complicated because there's movement between the frames and all that. So there tends to be all sorts of problems that, as we'll see as we go along here, that are created for this. So I just wanted to start though with this. There's this machine learning thing that I found on and just a internet video that came by, and I'm sitting here, and it was a sort of a rotoscoping tool online. So I said, okay, what does this do? It's interesting. Like I said, it worked pretty cool. And it's like automatic sort of green screen from live action footage that's not shot on a green screen. In a lot of ways, rotoscoping is better than green screen because you get natural lighting, which is the one thing is like, again, when you go to the Mandalorian or something, one of the things that with their rear projections is that you get all the color of the light and the quality of the light that's happening in the backgrounds. And the same thing when you're just shooting stuff on a regular background. And if you look at the works of Robert Zemeckis, like in the film Contact or Castaway, there were sort of quote unquote green screen elements, but he did a lot of rotoscoping back then, and it was great because you do it with the live action footage with backgrounds, and you get a better looking image when it's not on a green screen because of all those things I just said. So, but it's hard for it to do until now. Bringing to you Runway ML, machine learning. So if you go in here, and you can sign up for free, it's a beta. They do want money for certain things, but I'll show you how I skirted that. I took that shot from our little trip a couple of weeks back with the Emmy on her skateboard. And we're going to do a version of this in After Effects using the Roto Tool, but I'll show you just how cool it really is. And this is a bit complicated. So for general stuff, it's going to work a lot better. So you click on just what you want it to take, and it starts to try to figure it out. And I have to say, I've done this a few times now, and it always gets confused by the skateboard. It's like, I don't know. You can see here underneath her, there's a little spot there that is being included. They do have an exclude. You can say, just exclude this, but it's going to be moving so much. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a little more difficult. I'm going to say include a little more of this. It's not really getting the spikes in her hat, which of course you could just see even with your eye. It's hard to decipher all that. Anyway, what you do is you just hit preview. And where this becomes good is, and what it's doing is it's in the cloud. You upload your footage, and it's doing it with their computers. So they have machines working on it. And you can see where it's screwing up already. It's going, I don't know, and look at, oh, no, it has trouble with the skateboard. But with this program, what you can do is you can go through and say, no, and you'll see it creates a little keyframe. That, you mean not this? No, this and that. Oh, come on. Stupid machine. I didn't know you existed a minute ago. Why aren't you perfect? So you can skip through it and see, how you're doing. Again, these are pretty complex, So it's doing an okay job, and I wouldn't use this part of the shot anyway. You can see where helmet goes off there. For some reason, it just goes, there's no helmet now. There's a helmet. But it sort of figures it out. You go like, no, I want that. And it should try to keep up with that. Yeah, so now it's starting to figure it out. I've told it. So I preview again. So this is great. If you want to put, something in the background, or if you want to separate her and then do a color correction on the background, I think the new DaVinci Resolve has a lot of good stuff like this going on. And it's fast, right? It's an HD image. We'd still have to do our content-aware fill there. So when I hit export, you'll see that you can export it as a green screen. You can change the background stuff if you're into just fooling around. The only problem is if you go to HD, then it says pay us money. Yeah, that's fine, which is fine. Like it's a business. And if I was using this a lot, I would definitely consider it if it worked really well for the things I was doing. But I wanted to see what I could do, so I put it on a green screen, and it was a free SD export. So I exported it 640 by 380. I said, you know what? I'm a real compositor. I can deal with this. See how tough I am. So that's that was called Runway ML. So if you definitely go and play with it. Free. So what I did with it was I said, okay, well, it gives me a green screen, so I'll just I got alpha on. I'll just key it. Now the only thing is I made a pre-comp here because I need it to be in a 1920 by 1080. The original is 1920 by 1080, and it only spits out a fraction of that, right? It was a 640 by 380. So I said, good enough, I'll still use that. And I'll pull a key on it. And I'm not even going to care about the green screen. I'm just going to, and I didn't even use key light. I used key range, color range. Because all I wanted was what I just showed when I had it open. All I wanted was an alpha channel. Give me the alpha channel. And then when I go to the skateboard fix here, what I did was used an alpha matte here. Sorry, I'm going to get my my cursor highlighter out. There we go. So I have my high resolution footage now, and all I'm using is that as a alpha matte. So it doesn't matter if it's low resolution, as long as the edge is okay, which is fine for what I was doing here. So I was just playing around, and I just put a little glow on her, I think. There we go. But I could also do like now that she's separate, I could do a color correction to the background. Let's go up here and go effect. Let's go to color correction. I'll try something out of the Lumetri brand. Creative. Let's see if we got a look here. We can use iron. There you go. So it doesn't affect her at all. So I have these layers totally separate now. And one's just sitting over top of the other, and I could do a separate thing for her. But it's great. And if I wanted to, then I could, pre-compose this and then think about getting rid of the GoPro. But you can totally see what the, just how powerful this stuff's becoming. And this is just a couple of years old. This is like the rotoscoping tool in After Effects has been around for 5 or 6 years, but it's always been crappy. I think I had a student want to do something like rotoscope. They had a crew member in a shot, and they came to me for help, and they were using the Roto Tool in After Effects. And I said, well, the first thing you got to do is don't use that stupid Roto Tool. It doesn't work. It would work in like very specific situations, but it wasn't very good. But now it's actually really good, and we're going to look at that right now. Anyway, so here you get a sense, and here I'm just, since you're a compositor and you understand how compositing works, it allows you then to make a little cheat like this, where I'm just going to use this machine learning just to get myself an alpha matte. And with this mat here, you know, I can, if I wanted to play with the mat as well, since it has an alpha channel, I can go into the keying, and I'm not using this image, so I'm not worried about that, but I could actually go in here. Under keying, there are tools for your mat. It's actually under mat chokers, refine mats. So you can use all of these tools on this mat as well. But since I just wanted the alpha channel, I just wanted the black and white channel that it was offering me, and just applied it to this clean channel of the skateboarder in high res. And just so you know that green screen was blown up 300%. But it didn't really matter. And in some ways, it was nice. It softened the edges for me by being so low res. So it has a nice soft edge on it. But if that was on a green, you know, well, you couldn't do this on a green screen, right? You could do it on a green screen, but you have to have a big green screen studio, do all that kind of stuff. Here, you can just start taking this stuff out. And of course, you could duplicate, you know, your characters. Oh, I gotta duplicate this too now, don't I? No. I was gonna say you could duplicate and then move the characters over and stuff, but of course that would require me to pre-comp and all that can. So let's not do that here. Let's start anew with what we're gonna do today. Everyone hear me okay? Everything good? Don't save. I take this horse 2 out. That was from the previous class. All right, so I have a piece of footage here. Somebody's asked something. Oh, Elliot, man, when you know the further you go into this, the more your bag of tricks grows, and the more you start working with people, in anything like editing or anything, someone's gonna have something that you're gonna look over, and they're gonna do something. You're like, what did you just do there? And then they'll show you something, and you'll be like, oh my god, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's something you were doing that took 14 steps, you know, suddenly you do in 3 steps because somebody has a little trick, which is great, you know. So we always learn off each other, and even you guys, you know, I like teaching because I'm going to learn something because someone's going to show me something. It's you can never, especially in After Effects, you can never know as much as there is to know because it's all creative at some point. So let's look at the Roto tool in After Effects. So it does have something that's very similar to that website that we just were on, and they use their own sort of machine learning now too. And you'll see in After Effects and Premiere and stuff and Photoshop these neural filters, which are their way of saying artificial intelligence or machine learning or whatever little buzzword they want to give it. Machine learning seems to be the one everyone's going to because it makes people less scared of Skynet and Terminators coming to kill you, I think. So in order to use the Roto tool, which is up here, the Rotobrush tool, what you need is a piece of footage like this. This is a pretty complex piece of footage, as you can see. It's got, and what's complicated is the legs. She's okay. The horse is okay. They're pretty static, not moving a lot. But these legs are you know, intertwining. So this will be a little bit of a challenge for it. And when you're doing the Auto Roto tool, you want to find like a good frame to start on, and call this sort of your key frame. You're gonna, and it doesn't matter where you start, as you'll see in a second. It doesn't matter where you start. Just find a frame that you think will have all the elements, and then make the best roto you can out of that frame. So I'm going to click on the Rotobrush tool. You can't do it in a composition. You have to do it on a layer view. So right now it's in composition. To get on layer, of course, we just double click and brings it up. And what I want to do, bring back a little. All I want to do is tell it what the subject is. So I'm just going to say there's a horse here, his ear, here's his back, and there's a little girl. It's my other daughter. Didn't want to get the other one jealous. You know, how come you're always using Emmy on the skateboard and not me on a horse? Like, all right, geez. And you can see that I don't need to be precise at all on this. All I have to do is sort of just give it the general sense of the thing I want it to take. And I can refine this in a minute as well, as you'll see. So I say this, go around here, take this to here, and come around to its face and this too. And it'll go, do you mean this? You're like, yes, that's exactly what I mean, kind of. And you'll see that it's kind of messed up a little bit here. So this is where I'm going to help it. So I want to add the tail. So I'm going to hit tail 2, please. A little bit of tail. And I'll say, you mean this tail? And I'm like, yeah, that tail. But there's stuff I don't want here, right? It thinks this is an entire thing now. I'm going to say, no, not this. I want to take some of this away. And you'll see right now it's on a plus sign. To get the minus sign, just like in when you're painting with, or I think the clone stamp tool uses it. You just hit the Alt key, or is it? Oh, whoops, I just did that. Where when you're masking, you want to take stuff away, you hold down the Alt key. So the Alt will make it into a minus. That's what I want to do. I want to go minus. So I hold down Alt, and then I say, not this area, please. It says, okay, the legs, right? And I'm like, yeah, not this area. So it says in here, yeah, but not in here too. This is where his leg is. You like this here? Okay. Ask me how this is done, and I will say magic. It's done by magic. But this is how you do it. It does require, you to pay attention and to do some manual stuff, but you'll see very quickly how good it is once you get a good frame. So it's taking too much of the tail, so I'll say, the tail's here, the tail's here, tail's here. And then this little bit here, well, I want to subtract that, this little bit in here. Now, certain things like this, I'm not going to worry about. These, like, to get it to follow these, I could try it. I'm not going to try it for class today, but you can certainly try this. But these will always be an issue, especially with this. Like the fact that they're flimsy, right? That they're going to bend all over the place, so it might have a hard time with these. So some of this stuff you may have to do more manually later. But for now, this is still pretty awesome. And I'm just going to get into the tail a little bit more, I think, in here. And over here, you see, and the idea is that you want to take your time on the first frame. Try to get it as good as you can on the first frame, because that's going to go a long way for the rest of them. See, there's stuff in here I screwed up. Minus over here just by the hoof. You said if you had to do this for every frame, you're going to kill yourself. You're like, you're right. I'm not going to do this for every frame. So I think that's pretty good. Well, hold on. Let me see a little bit on her back there, and this little area for her hair. All right, I'm going to say for our purposes that's good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit home or end. You can just drag if you want. You can drag this, but I'm just going to hit home. And it's going to go to the first, and you can see that it's filling us all in. It's going, it's following along. Then I'm going to hit the end key, And it's going to start here and go all the way. This goes way faster than I thought it would. I'll make it go slow in a second, though. And you can see in here already there's a problem, right? There's doing all right there. All right. So it's done a pass. Let's take a peek. Hole of a jeeber. Now that's pretty good. And if I was just adding like just wanting to separate this for like color correction, things like that, like that you would do in DaVinci Resolve or something. But this is a good pass. The other thing I don't like is all that, and this is the problem with rotoscoping, is you get all this chattery, everything dancing around the edges of it. But what you got to consider, this is quite a complex shape. If it was just like you or a friend standing talking to the camera, it's going to be way more precise and easier than this. But here you have like a horse where its legs are moving, its tail has is bouncing all over, a little bit of her hair. So it's doing a remarkably good job. And you can see here that it's created these little keyframes. That's been the frame that I started on. So now if I go further down, like say here, I go like, well, you know, it's not doing a good job. I'm going to go back to the layer view. And I'm going to say, no. You're missing, I've told you, not this part. But keep the tail. And it goes this, right? And you're like, yeah. And what it'll do is it'll learn from that, and it'll keep trying now to fix that. And you can see that all the area beyond it it's erased itself. It said, okay, well, from here on out, I'm going to look for that. And you can see here that it's grabbing this element here, and I don't want that. So I might hit minus on this, minus this area, but keep, and this is where you can see where it's difficult. It's trying keeping that ear. But it's trying, you know, stupid machine. I think Louis C.K. Before his fall had a very funny bit about cell phones. You guys remember that bit he does about technology? Like, I just discovered this happened. This, you know, I could do this today, but it's not. You know, now I'm going to scream at it because it's not perfect. This is pretty amazing, and it's taken quite a while to get here, but it's pretty remarkable. So go back and let's have a peek. And what you would do, you know, I think to rotoscope this shot for real would take quite a while, right? Because you would break it up. Like if you're actually rotoscoping it by using a pen tool, you would pen around the. Generally, you'd break this into pieces. You'd probably pen around the horse, his head, to his torso, maybe around here, and then you'd roto the tail separate, and then you'd roto the legs separate. So you'd have several rotos. And when we did Harry Potter, on a complex shot, this one would be given to one compositor, but on a complex shot, sometimes you'd have 2 or 3 or 4 compositors working on a particular shot, saying, okay, you do this, you do the legs, I'll do the torso, you do the tail, and then we just combine all 3 of those rotoscopes into the final image. So it's like 3 pieces of the same puzzle. And the same thing here, you could actually rotoscope, like if certain things were problematic, you could rotoscope just the girl, and then have another layer where you just rotoscope the horse separate, and just go piece by piece, because once you piece them together, they're going to become the whole, right? So you have 3 pieces of the same thing. So you could definitely have one that's just her, one that's the horse, and then one that's the legs. But it's doing a good job of everything all at once here. So let's go back to our. So there's still a little bit Now something like that, you could also remove, and I'll show you in a minute how to do that. I'm going to leave it for now. But you see little things that would need fixing. But you'll see that when we go back to the layer, a few things we haven't done yet. We've got a feather on, so feathering's fine. Let me see, feather of 8 or something. You can play with these. I don't want to shift the edge. It seems fine. Again, since it's not a green screen, the edge isn't a big deal. But I want to get rid of some of that chatter. So I'm going to say reduce chatter by 50%. And the chatter being all that boiling that's happening around the horse. The other thing I want to do is I want to use motion blur because this is moving a lot. So the camera probably has motion blur in it as well. While I'm here, I might as well fix this frame too. It's driving me crazy. Whoops. No, undo. Alt. I'm going to say, come on, right into its tuchus. Am I allowed to say that on Blackboard? You've gone too far. Well, let's go for that for now. And then I'm going to turn on use motion blur. Now this should technically increase my render times, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything. Oops, I'm on the wrong one. I'm going to be on composition. So again, to get here manually would take quite a long time. Here, this is doable, and even the stuff that's happening under his face here, I could yeah, there it goes. It has a real hard time when it crosses over that one area. But I can even just paint on the alpha channel on that, or just mask it out manually. But that's all I'm having to do is just that area, as opposed to the entire horse. So it's pretty remarkable. And if I'm just doing, say, like a color correction background or something like that with the separation, then it's perfectly fine the way it is, with the exception of that one piece. So I'm going to go back to the rotos. Say I like this rotoscope. You say, no, you don't. Oh, I don't? Okay. What happens if we go to best? Let's see what happens. So that was the other thing. It was in standard quality. Now we'll go to best quality. I'm going to bore you guys for a minute, and we'll try this. There's much more to do after this. Again, I'm not going to make an exercise of this, but I will provide today's class. I'll edit this down into like the tutorial. I'll post that for you guys with this footage, and if you want to try it on your own, or you can try it with your own footage. But given that I got 7 people today, wow. Really inspiring the people. What you can do is just export, or export. It's a good question. Export it alpha channels. So even if I were to do this in After Effects and I wanted, but the footage was in Avid or something like that, if the program can understand an alpha channel, then you can apply it to any program. So I could do all of this here, send it to someone who has Nuke or Fusion, and I'll just send it as, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. Send it as an export of the alpha channel. Then that alpha channel can be used in any program that understands alpha channels. And that's how we did it in Harry Potter. We had so many different kinds of people coming in that use different software. We had like 4 separate, for the rotoscoping department, we had 4 separate programs that you could use. There was a thing called Shake, which was owned by Apple at the time. There was Shake. There was combustion, After Effects, and I think one more, Fusion. And whatever one you were comfortable use with, they'd get a license for you, and then all you had to do was make sure that you combined the alpha channels properly, and then all of that went to Maya as an alpha channel, so it went into a 3D animation program. But it didn't matter, and everything was color coded. So like Harry Potter would be like a full blue, another character would be full green. So their color values were the alpha channels. Anyway, it was very complicated, but very cool. It's like 150 rotoscoping artists. All right, there we go. That one was Order of the Phoenix. So you can see that even the high quality is looking a lot better. It still has lots of little areas I could clean up, but I could just paint those again, paint the alpha channel. I can paint. Let's say I like what I'm seeing here. So that's for all the time it's taken us, it's 3:05, and this is how far we got on this shot already. It's pretty amazing. And this would take you like at least the day, maybe you longer. And things like this need cleaning up, and of course you can clean up for various ways. One of the ways, of course, the clean way of cleaning it would be using a masking tool. But the thing I want to show you first is once you've got your roto done, is you want to hit the freeze button. And what it'll do is it'll freeze and cache all of the roto for you, which means that it's not going to need to calculate this anymore. So it's basically pre-rendering, if you will, the entire rotoscope. And that way, with the pre-render, you can do all sorts of stuff, and it's not going to take any computation for it to play this back anymore. It's an alpha channel. So I'm just going to be quiet for a sec while it does its hard work. And notice it's going backwards from my keyframe, and then it'll stop at the first frame and then start going forward again. So it's not like you make that keyframe and then it says, okay, well, I'll start at the beginning. It starts from that keyframe and then tries to figure out the shape and the change of the shape as it's going. And again, those legs are really complicated. Like, I can't tell you how awesome this is to get this far in a shot, and you're not even done your first coffee, of the day. There's some problems with the tail there we have to fix, but so far so good. I'll just stop talking for 40%. That's the stuff. There we go. So now it's cached now in memory or on a drive. So anything I do now, it's not going to have to recalculate that unless I go back into the Rotobrush and I change any of these settings. But if I like what I've got here, and again, for the amount of time that we've spent on this, it's pretty amazing. So you can probably do this shot, in a couple of hours instead of, half a day or a full day. And there we go. So you can put objects behind her now. You can do a color correction of the background. So if I put the background back under, so the original shot, and then say I go before, color correction, Lumetri is good because it's got presets that I can just quickly. Blue dynamite. There you go. Wow, blue dynamite. So a little bleach bypass. All that stuff becomes moot now. You can see a little bit of edge now that there's enough contrast. But even then, if you go back into the roto, there's contrast and stuff on here. But also, like I said before, it has you can use matte tools for this as well. So if you go into matte and say, put a matte choker on it, you know what I'm going to do though? First, I'm going to pre-comp this. And I want to pre-comp this because I want to pre-compose it so and move everything into the pre-comp so that I don't touch the rotoscope. It's done. I'm going to leave it alone. And when I want to go into it, I'll go into the composition that holds it. So I'll just call this the roto. So now any effect I add on here, the rotoscope is not in here. It's inside here. It's in. Oh, come on. Sorry. Yeah, it's inside in the roto pre-comp, which is now a layer. And this is where you'd want to use pre-comps. And this pre-comp, if I turn off the background layer and look at it, it's a alpha. So to your question, what can I do now to send this out? I could have a bottom alpha, an alpha of her on the top, or an alpha and the legs on the bottom. I could send 3 of those out, or I could just place all 3 in here and stack them on top of each other, and they'll all make one alpha channel. But I can also send this out to another program. If I'm going to use the render queue. If you'll see here that there is a thing called lossless with alpha. So if I was sending something to say Avid with an alpha channel, I could send it. It's a little different on Mac than, yeah, see the animation codec allows you to do, this is a totally uncompressed codec animation if you ever see it. But some of these allow you to do alpha channels, like ProRes 4444 allows for alpha channel. So if I do that, it says RGB plus alpha. And if I render that, it'll do that. If I just do alpha, let's just do that. I'll show it to you. This is being recorded, by the way, and I will give you the recording. And we'll just put that in, not Cheddar. Put that in Rotobrush here, Horse 2. And then I render this. It's just going to render just the alpha channel. And I can use that as a luma matte. I can bring this into Avid, I can bring this into Premiere, I can bring this into any program that will understand luminance mattes, and I can apply this to anything in any project. There you go. And that goes back to the way I was using that ML, because if I bring Horse 2 in here, import file, Horse 2, I'm gonna make a comp off that. So there's just the alpha channel that we created, which means, when I say talk about painting on an alpha channel, if I paint black in this area when that thing goes over right there, if I paint that black, that'll become part of its transparency. So when I'm talking about painting it and stuff like that, if I paint this black or I paint something white, I can actually just paint this stuff out right on an alpha. It's a bit more complicated, but just so you know that it's there. But if I take the original horse footage and place it down here underneath it, and then I just put it on, even just on a luminance mat, there it is. Rotoscoping 101, and you can do this with any program. You can do the work here and put it into any program that'll allow you um, to use a mat. So this is the possibilities that you have, going forward in the future. Go forth and be awesome.